How's it going, people? Roll everything here. You know, there is this very bizarre and very weird notion going around the video game industry being pushed by video game journalists and many other people on social media. And it is bizarre because, well, it is one I just don't agree with, and it is one that I feel it's doing more harm than good to the video game industry and to the community overall, and it is this weird notion that everything and anything should be quote unquote accessible. Now, before any of you jumps at me and starts calling me ableist, elitist, or whatever, I want you to hear me out. Because this idea is that apparently video games should be homogenizing themselves, they shouldn't be doing anything too extreme, too offensive, or too difficult, just so they don't turn other gamers away from it, so they don't turn new people from ever trying them out. It is a notion I guess I can respect in a way. Like, I too would love for more people to get to experience the joy of video games. But at the same time, I'm somebody who is well aware that sometimes something is just not for you. Now, for anybody wondering what the hell am I talking about, the link is in the description, so you guys can have a very nice or very baffling read. Because this article comes to you from none other than the very lovely, very infamous Dean Takahashi. For those who don't know who he is, this is the man who got stuck at the tutorial for Cuphead. Yeah, that guy who couldn't clear the jump tutorial thing. Anyways, Mr. Takahashi made this article where he tells us that he got to check out a demo for the new Call of Duty, which is going to be a reboot for the Modern Warfare series, which I think is really cool. In this reboot, Infinity Ward decided they are going to ground the game a little bit more in realism. It's going to be more about the more serious military operations and less about the campy popcorn entertainment that Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 became. It is also one that wants to get a little bit more edgy. It's one that wants to show you some of the rougher parts about war. It's a game that even in the trailer it showcases terrorism, it showcases civilians getting hurt. There was even a description about a couple of gameplay missions that Mr. Takahashi got to see. One which describes a little girl protecting her little brother from a Russian soldier as said soldier murders their father in cold blood. And then it becomes a stealth mission where the little girl ends up killing the Russian soldier by stabbing him to death. And then we get to the mid of the article, the mission that Mr. Takahashi got to see, about how there is this terrorist attack in London and your player character and several British soldiers storm a house where the terrorists are supposedly hiding in. It gets to a point where some people get shot, namely people who were reaching out for detonators, reaching for bombs. There is a scene where a woman grabs a baby to shield herself. Fortunately, it is one that you do not get to kill, you do not have to kill. And overall, according to Mr. Takahashi, because they are using a new and more improved video game engine, the game looks a lot more photorealistic. Everything looks a lot more real this time. And obviously in a video game where your main gameplay mechanic is that you shoot people in the face, I can understand why this will get a little more disturbing, especially when they are going to go into a more rough subject matter like, say, terrorism, civilian casualties, and the morally gray areas that come with having to shoot somebody dressed as a civilian because they are throwing a weapon at you and your life is at risk. This is where Dean Takahashi gets offended. And he feels that all of these things are a little too disturbing, on top of the game being a first-person war game, of course. And he feels this new Modern Warfare shouldn't be shipping with those kinds of scenes, because he feels it's too much. And he also feels, in this age of social media, in this age where everybody can post a lot of things about anything, somebody could grab those scenes and use them to showcase some other messed up things. Like, he feels they could be using them for something wrong. Which I guess, I kind of respect his point of view, I kind of respect his opinion. But what I get to have an issue with it is precisely on him saying that Infinity War shouldn't be tackling those topics. They shouldn't be showcasing those kinds of things because he personally found them disturbing. I don't agree with this way of thinking from him. Because, as I said at the beginning of the video, if you are not enjoying something, if something you're finding it a little too disturbing, if you feel it's not for you, either because the game is a little too heavy or the gameplay is too hard, it is perfectly fine to decide that it's not for you and move on to something else. Yes, there's potential in having a wider appeal. There is potential in having something appeal to more audiences because you're gonna get more people, more money, more whatever. But sometimes the developers are just not looking for that kind of reach. And that's something that needs to be respected. I feel, even though I have disagreed with developers at times, I feel developers have the last word when it comes what kind of vision they have for their game. In the case of Infinity Ward, they want to tell a more serious or more grounded story and something that is gonna be a bit more rough to watch, like the airport mission in Modern Warfare 2. That's perfectly fine. If they pull it up perfectly, then, you know what? Modern Warfare is going to become once again thought-provoking about the realities of war. And I can live with it. I like that notion. But because people like Dean Takahashi have these bizarre outlook that no, you shouldn't be this offensive, you should reconsider that you may be offending people, that things are a little too disturbing. No, just no, okay? This is the kind of problem I have with some of the things happening in journalism, especially in video games journalism, where the writers in question, they start, rather than simply critiquing the thing, they feel some things should just be removed. That's what I mean with them trying to get things homogenized. Because when you start trying to make everything in a bubble where you don't want to offend anybody or you don't want to frustrate people because your gameplay is too hard, video games start to lose their identity. It becomes honestly no different from just how flooded any mobile app store is from all that shovelware that has nothing thoughtful or nothing of substance to offer other than just wasting a little bit of your time while you're outside. Now, the other problem with this, on top of the whole call for censorship, is that Dean Takahashi is making this suggestion when the game is due to come out in 4 months at the time of this recording. They haven't even showed the full context of the scenes I described, and they already said that, yeah, you kill people in civilian clothing because they drew your weapons at you. Like, even though the subject matter of the new Modern Warfare is going to be rough and it's going to be disturbing, it is also one that gives you proper context as to why you are shooting people dressed as civilians, why you are doing these disturbing things. It's not just edgy for the sake of being edgy. Of course, your mileage may vary. Of course, there's those who don't really enjoy Call of Duty, and you may feel Infinity War is not going to handle it well, but that is a topic in its own. That is a separate thing. The other point I'm making here is that I can't help but feel the arguments Dean Takahashi is making in these articles to be made in bad faith, to be made in a sensationalized manner just because they want to drive more anger and more clicks to the website. Which I get it. It is their job. It is literally what they do for a living, to drive people to read these articles. But my problem, and why I find this to be done in bad faith, is because he's making these claims that this shouldn't be showcased, as if Infinity Ward wouldn't be taking matters into their own hands and take measures to make sure people know very well what they are getting into. Because, let me remind you, for those of you who may have missed it, or those of you who didn't play Modern Warfare 2, there is a warning when you start the game that there is going to be a mission that is going to be very disturbing and very graphic. It is, of course, the airport mission. You don't need to play it in order to complete the game, and you get, at the very least, 4 different warnings before you decide if you really want to go through with it. Like, you get all the warnings in the world to make sure that, yes, it is your own discretion that you're going to be playing this mission about a mass shooting of innocent civilians. And Dean Takahashi expects me to believe that Infinity Ward wouldn't put those measures into place, that they are gonna be stupid enough to make people, children, anybody who's gonna play these games go through it and not know that it is going to get disturbing, especially when it is in the press releases. Come on now. Like, this just screams bad faith for me. This just screams cheap sensationalization. It is one of the main issues I have with video games journalism these days. Like I said, I get it. You have your opinion, you have your thing to say. I don't agree with Dean Takahashi, but he's entitled to his opinion. I respect that. But it comes off as very, very decisional. Like, look at it from this way, and this is one of the many reasons why I take issue with a lot of how video game journalists conduct themselves. His job, his overall job, is that he was supposed to tell us, you know what, I got access to the new Call of Duty, I found it very disturbing, the game is going to be very graphic with the violence, with the photorealism, be prepared when the game comes out. Because it personally got to me. Fine, that's fine, I respect that point. But then he turns what should be, a report on the new game and makes it into a more of a personal thing about how he feels Infinity Ward or any other developer out there. They shouldn't really be tackling touchy subjects. They shouldn't really be using graphic or rough imagery in order to give you something a little bit more thought-provoking and not just your typical popcorn entertainment from these games. It is his opinion, whatever. I repeated this ad nauseum by this point, but when it comes to video game journalists, the only real difference between a video game journalist writing an opinion piece about how they feel things should be going in gaming, and some random like me making this YouTube video or making a post in a forum, is that the journalist gets paid for this. But yeah, I think the main point I'm making is that I don't really go to a video game website just to see how video game journalists personally feel about the video game industry. If I want to know that, I'll follow them on social media. I'll say, yeah, well, I agree, I disagree with you, whatever. I don't go to look up an article actively telling me how I am wrong for liking something offensive or something that is a little bit too much. I don't go there. I go there for the facts. I want to know what exactly has been happening with my industry, and I would like to leave it at that. But anyways, I think I have rambled long enough. How do you guys feel about this topic? Let me know in the comments area. As for me, well, that is going to be it for this video, so thank you very much for watching, and as usual, I'll see you all in the next one.